Treaty of Moultrie Creek, 1823. The Treaty of Camp Moultrie, 1823, also known as Moultrie Creek, came on the heels of the cession of Florida from Spain to the U.S. in 1821. The primary goal of this treaty was to obtain Seminole lands in North Florida targeted for the expansion of plantation slavery. The treaty created a reservation in Central Florida and provided goods, tools, and an annuity to help relocate the Seminoles. Treaty with the Florida Tribes of Indians, 1823, September 18, 1823, 7 Stat. 224. Proclamation, January 2, 1824, said Indians to continue under the protection of the United States. Article 1. The undersigned chiefs and warriors, for themselves and their tribes, have appealed to the humanity, and thrown themselves on, and have promised to continue under, the protection of the United States, and of no other nation, power, or sovereign, and in consideration of the promises and stipulations hereinafter made, do cede and relinquish all claim or title which they may have to the whole territory of Florida, with the exception of such district of country as shall herein be allotted to them. Said Indians to be confined to the following metes and bounds. Article 2. The Florida tribes of Indians will hereafter be concentrated and confined to the following metes and boundaries. Commencing 5 miles north of Okeechobee, running in a direct line to a point 5 miles west of Setarkey's settlement on the waters of the Amazura, or Withlacoochee River, leaving said settlement 2 miles south of the line. From thence in a direct line to the south end of the Big Hammock, to include Chicachate, continuing in the same direction for 5 miles beyond the said hammock, provided said point does not approach nearer than 15 miles the seacoast of the Gulf of Mexico. If it does, the said line will terminate at that distance from the seacoast, thence south 12 miles, thence in a south 30 east direction, until the same shall strike within 5 miles of the main branch of Charlotte River, thence in a due east direction to within 20 miles of the Atlantic coast, thence north 15 west, for 50 miles, and from this last to the beginning point, United States to take the Florida Indians under their care, etc. Article 3. The United States will take the Florida Indians under their care and patronage, and will afford them protection against all persons whatsoever, provided they conform to the laws of the United States, and refrain from making war, or giving any insult to any foreign nation, without having first obtained the permission and consent of the United States, and in consideration of the appeal and cession made in the first article of this treaty. By the aforesaid chiefs and warriors, the United States promised to distribute of their agent, implements of husbandry, and stock of cattle and hogs, to the amount of $6,000. And an annual sum of $5,000 a year, for 20 successive years, to be distributed as the President of the United States shall direct, through the Secretary of War, or his superintendents and agent of Indian Affairs. United States to guarantee peaceable possession of the district assigned them, on certain conditions. Article 4. The United States promised to guarantee to the said tribes the peaceable possession of the district of country herein assigned them, reserving the right of opening through it such roads as may, from time to time, be deemed necessary, and to restrain and prevent all white persons from hunting, settling, or otherwise intruding upon it, by any citizens of the United States, being lawfully authorized for that purpose, shall be permitted to pass and repass through the said district, and to navigate the waters thereof, without any hindrance, toll, or exaction, from said tribes. Corn, meat, etc., to be allowed them for 12 months. Article 5. For the purpose of facilitating the removal of the said tribes to the district of country allotted them, and as a compensation for the losses sustained, or the inconveniences to which they may be exposed by said removal, the United States will furnish them with rations of corn, meat, and salt. For 12 months, commencing on the first day of February next, and they further agree to compensate those individuals who have been compelled to abandon improvements on lands not embraced within the limits allotted, to the amount of $4,500 to be distributed among the sufferers in a ratio to each proportional to the value of the improvements abandoned. The United States further agree to furnish a sum not exceeding $2,000 to be expended by their agent to facilitate the transportation of the different tribes to the point of concentration designated, an agent, etc., to be appointed to reside among them. Article 6. An agent, sub-agent, and interpreter shall be appointed to reside within the Indian boundary aforesaid, to watch over the interests of said tribes, and the United States further stipulate, as an evidence of their humane policy towards said tribes, who have appealed to their liberality, to allow for the establishment of a school at the agency, $1,000 per year for 20 successive years, and $1,000 per year for the same period, for the support of a gun and blacksmith, with the expenses incidental to his shop. Indians to prevent any fugitive slaves from taking shelter among them, etc. Article 7. The chiefs and warriors aforesaid, for themselves and tribes, stipulate to be active and vigilant in the preventing retreating to, or passing through, of the district of country assigned them, of any absconding slaves or fugitives from justice, and further agree to use all necessary exertions to apprehend and deliver the same to the agent, who shall receive orders to compensate them agreeably to the trouble and expenses incurred. A commissioner and surveyor to be appointed. Article 8. A commissioner or commissioners with a surveyor shall be appointed by the President of the United States to run and mark, blazing fore and aft the trees, the line is defined in the second article of this treaty, who shall be attended by a chief and warrior, to be designated by a council of their own tribes, and who shall receive, while so employed, a daily compensation of $3. Grounds on which the objections of said tribes to certain lands are founded. Article 9. The undersigned chiefs and warriors, for themselves and tribes, having objected to their concentration within the limits described in the second article of this treaty, under the impression that the said limits did not contain a sufficient quantity of good land to subsist them, and for no other reason, it is, therefore, expressly understood between the United States and the aforesaid chiefs and warriors, that, should the country embraced in the said limits, upon examination by the Indian agent and the commissioner, or commissioners, to be appointed under the 8th article of this treaty, be by them considered insufficient for the support of the said Indian tribes, then the north line, as defined in the 2d article of this treaty, shall be removed as far north as to embrace a sufficient quantity of good tillable land. Said Indians request the grant in fee simple of certain lands to Colonel Humphreys and S. Richards. Article 10. The undersigned chiefs and warriors, for themselves and tribes, have expressed to the commissioners their unlimited confidence in their agent, Colonel Gad Humphreys, and their interpreter, Stephen Richards, and, as an evidence of their gratitude for their services and humane treatment, and brotherly attentions to their wants, request that 1 mile square, embracing the improvements of Nehe Mathla at Tallahassee, said improvements to be considered as the center, be conveyed, in fee simple, as a present to Colonel Gad Humphreys, and they further request that 1 mile square, at the Ocheesee Bluffs, embracing Stephen Richards Field on said bluffs, be conveyed in fee simple, as a present to said Stephen Richards. The commissioners accord in sentiment with the undersigned chiefs and warriors, and recommend a compliance with their wishes to the President and Senate of the United States, but the disapproval, on the part of the said authorities, of this article, shall, in no wise, affect the other articles and stipulations concluded on in this treaty. In testimony whereof, the Commissioners, William P. Duval, James Gadsden, and Bernard Segui, and the undersigned chiefs and warriors, have hereunto subscribed their names and affixed their seals. Done at camp on Moultrie Creek, in the territory of Florida, this 18th day of September, 1823, and of the independence of the United States the 48th. William P. Duval Wax Halata, his ex-Mark James Gadsden Amith La Ho, his ex-Mark Bernard Segui Holate Fishiko, his ex-Mark Nea Mathla, his ex-Mark Shefashiko Haho, his ex-Mark Tokos Mathla, his ex-Mark Lathloa Mathla, his ex-Mark Nini Homata Tustanuki, his ex-Mark Senufki, his ex-Mark Mykonop, his ex-Mark Alec Haho, his ex-Mark Nokozi Aola, his ex-Mark Fahalasti Haho, his ex-Mark John Blunt, his ex-Mark Octahamiko, his ex-Mark Otlamata, his ex-Mark Tusnek Haho, his ex-Mark Tuskineha, his ex-Mark Okowski Amithla, his ex-Mark Tuski Haho, his ex-Mark Okini Tustanuki, his ex-Mark Ekonchitimako, his ex-Mark Philip, his ex-Mark Amodli, his ex-Mark Charlie Amithla, his ex-Mark Mulatto King, his ex-Mark John Hoponi, his ex-Mark Mulatto King, his ex-Mark Rathead, his ex-Mark Chocholahano, his ex-Mark Holada Amithla, his ex-Mark Ematlashi, his ex-Mark Fashachimiko, his ex-Mark. Signed, sealed, and delivered, in the presence of George Murray, Secretary to the Commission, G. Humphreys, Indian Agent, Stephen Richards, Interpreter, Isaac N. Cox, J. Irving, Captain. 4th Artillery, Harvey Brown, Lieutenant, 4th Artillery, C. Despinville, Lieutenant, 4th Artillery, J.N.O. B. Scott, Lieutenant, 4th Artillery, William Travers, Horatio S. Dexter. Additional article, September 18, 1823. 7 Stat. 226. Additional article, whereas Neo Mathla, John Blunt, Tuski Haho, Mulatto King, E. Mathalashi, and Ekonchitimako, 6 of the principal chiefs of the Florida Indians, and parties to the treaty to which this article has been annexed, have warmly appealed to the commissioners for permission to remain in the district of country now inhabited by them, and in consideration of their friendly disposition and past services to the United States, it is, therefore, stipulated between the United States and the aforesaid chiefs, that the following reservations shall be surveyed and marked by the commissioner or commissioners to be appointed under the 8th article of this treaty, for the use of Nea Mathla and his connections, 2 miles square, embracing the Tufulga village, on the waters of Rocky Comfort Creek. For Blunt and Tuski Haho, a reservation, commencing on the Apalachicola, 1 mile below Tuski Haho's improvements, running up said river 4 miles, thence, west, 2 miles, thence, southerly, to a point 2 miles due west of the beginning, thence east to the beginning point. For Mulatto King and Emathalashi, a reservation, commencing on the Apalachicola, at a point to include Yellow Hair's improvements, thence, up said river, for 4 miles, thence, west, 1 mile, thence, southerly, to a point 1 mile west of the beginning, and thence, east, to the beginning point, for Econ, Chatimiko, a reservation, commencing on the Chattahoochee, 1 mile below Econchatimiko's house, thence, up said river, for 4 miles, thence, 1 mile, west, thence, southerly, to a point 1 mile west of the beginning, thence east to the beginning point. The United States promised to guarantee the peaceable possession of the said reservations as defined to the aforesaid chiefs and their descendants only, so long as they shall continue to occupy, improve, or cultivate the same, but in the event of abandonment of all, or either of the reservations, by the chief or chiefs to whom they have been allotted, the reservation, or reservations, so abandoned, shall revert to the United States, as included in the cession made in the first article of this treaty. It is further understood that the names of the individuals remaining on the reservations aforesaid shall be furnished by the chiefs in whose favor the reservations have been made, to the Superintendent or Agent of Indian Affairs in the Territory of Florida, and that no other individuals shall be received or permitted to remain within said reservations, without the previous consent of the Superintendent or Agent aforesaid, and as the aforesaid chiefs are authorized to select the individuals remaining with them, so they shall each be separately held responsible for the peaceable conduct of their towns, or the individuals residing on the reservations allotted to them. It is further understood, between the parties, at any future period, of all or either of the aforesaid chiefs and their connections, to the District of Country South, allotted to the Florida Indians, by second article of this treaty, whenever either, or all may think proper to make such an election, the United States reserving the right of ordering, for any outrage or misconduct, the aforesaid chiefs, or either of them, with their connections, within the District of Country South, aforesaid. It is further stipulated by the United States that, of the $6,000 appropriated for implements of husbandry, stock, and sea, in the third article of this treaty, $800 shall be distributed, in the same manner, among the aforesaid chiefs and their towns, and it is understood that, of the annual sum of $5,000 to be distributed by the President of the United States, they will receive their proportion. It is further stipulated that, of the $4,500 and $2,000 provided for by the fifth article of this treaty, for the payment for improvements and transportation, $500 shall be awarded to Neo-Mathla as a compensation for the improvements abandoned by him, as well as to meet the expense he will unavoidably be exposed to by his own removal and that of his connections. In testimony whereof, the Commissioners, William P. Duval, James Gadsden, and Bernard Segui, and the undersigned chiefs and warriors, have hereunto subscribed their names and affixed their seals. Done a camp on Moultrie Creek in the Territory of Florida, this 18th day of September, 1823, and of the Independence of the United States 48th. W.M. P. Duval, His Ex Mark James Gadsden, Bernard Segui, Nea Mathla, His Ex Mark John Blunt, His Ex Mark Tusky Haho, His Ex Mark Mulatto King, His Ex Mark Mathalashi, His Ex Mark Conchadimako, His Ex Mark. Signed, sealed, delivered, in presence of George Murray, Secretary to the Commission Ya. W. Ripley, G. Humphreys, Indian Agent, Stephen Richards, Interpreter. The following statement shows the number of men retained by the chiefs, who have reservations made them, at their respective villages. Blunt 43, Cochrane 45, Mulatto King 30, Mathalashi 28, Conchatimako 38, Neo Mathia 30, total 214.